Good evening. Welcome to PoliticIt podcast. Tonight we have Frank Mylar, and Frank's running for Attorney General. It's nice to have you here, Frank.
It's good to be here. Thanks.
Let's talk a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing, where you came from, and where you went to school, and talk a little bit about your experience.
Sure. First of all, I was born in Caldwell, Idaho. We moved around a bit. And lived in Montana for a while, lived in north central Washington, which is the conservative part of that state. And I found myself in Seattle, Washington for high school. I realized then that was a very liberal area. I didn't have necessarily conservative parents. I actually started reading Milton Friedman's Free to Choose about that time. He was a Nobel economist.
I have a PhD in economics, but I was motivated to go into economics because of that show, basically.
Yeah, well, and I that was one of my majors in college, was economics with minor in political science and philosophy, and history actually too. And anyway, that really helped me think differently. I think I was a person who, on my own, decided to read the Bible a lot and read it every day. And I ended up going to a very conservative college, Wheaton College in Chicago area. And incidentally, it's a college similar to BYU that has a statement that everyone has to sign, including professors, in terms of conduct and things like that. So when I hear about the different conduct issues, at BYU, I go, well, that's no different than the college where I went. Yeah. And then I met my wife when I was in law school. I went to Seattle University Law School, went back home for that. And it was a long-distance relationship because she was working at the University Hospital and also in a master's program. And initially, we just thought, well, we'll just move here and, when we get married, and we'll just wait till she finishes her master's. And one thing led to another. We just loved the area and loved the culture, loved the pro-family atmosphere that's so prevalent, and was an area that we decided, hey, let's just stay here. We've been here our entire marriage, over 36 years, raised 5 children, and right now have 5.
So where are you at in the state?
I'm in Cottonwood Heights, Utah.
Cottonwood Heights. Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so we've loved it, and we love to camp. We're probably way more attached to the rural areas than most people in the Wasatch Front, because we do love to camp, but we also had kids that were in single and double A basketball, and they travel, and volleyball and soccer, and we traveled throughout the state.
Okay,
literally.
so you're in law school, you finished law school, you come to here to practice. What did you do in the law to begin with?
What did I study?
Yeah, I mean, what's your specialization, and
sure,
who'd you go to work for? And
yeah, I worked for a couple of private firms before starting with the Attorney General's office in 1988. I was hired by David Wilkinson. He was a very conservative Attorney General, and he also was known for fighting pornography. And then, unfortunately, there was a couple of Democrats that followed him. But I already had career service status. One person in the office wanted to get rid of me because I was a new hire, but he couldn't, because they couldn't find any justification and reason to do so. And I ended up rising through the ranks, even with Paul Van Dam and Jan Graham. They noticed my ability to fight civil rights cases and constitutional issues. I also volunteered for everything in my division, literally. I did felony welfare fraud prosecutions, had my first trial within 2 years of graduating from law school, my first jury trial within 6 months of graduating from law school. So I was into the fire because of a desire to get into the fire.
So can you tell our viewers a little bit about what does the Attorney General do?
Excellent.
And what's your what was your role, and what were you doing?
Yeah, and that's important, because most of the candidates don't even know really what the Attorney General's office does. First of all, it should be leadership. It should be governing the office. And that's something that's missing in the last several Attorney Generals. They're not leading. They're not leading the attorneys that work there. As an Attorney General, you think of as a general in wartime, you want to lead well the people that are working under you. They don't seem to do that at all. They look at it as a figurehead position, and the candidates that are running seem to do a little bit of the same because they're not really familiar with it. But I've actually managed attorneys in that Attorney General's office, but also managed attorneys outside the office. So that's one important factor that often gets overlooked. Now, the things that I did were almost worked in almost every major area of the office. Like I said, I did some prosecutions. I did some civil prosecutions. I also worked in the litigation division. I defended school districts, did Title IX, Title VI cases that are Title IX are very important now because of the women's sports issues, actually. Those usually come under Title IX. I did several of those. In fact, I represented Ogden High School in a case years ago. Also worked in criminal appeals. I handled some appeals. I actually handled a Menzies criminal writ years ago, and I guess he's now up for the firing squad. I also was Corrections General Counsel for a while, and also the Director of Legal Affairs, working for the Department of Corrections as a Special Assistant Attorney General. And that was significant because I was actually the attorney for the state of Utah during the Taylor execution that happened in 1996. I was there in the middle of the night when they had the execution, which was about 3 a.m. And if there had been any emergency, they would have actually called me to get legal advice and input on whether the execution could go forward, whether it had to stop.
So do you represent the state or do you represent the people? How does that work?
Excellent question. First of all, the answer is yes. You represent the state and its agencies. You give counsel to the state and its agencies. But there should be an overlying issue, and I have always had this in my practice, is that the Constitution rules first. Because swear to give an oath to the Constitution as an attorney. And I also do so certainly when I'm in law enforcement agencies, and I still do so. And so that has to be the overarching issue. That also brings into impact citizens' rights. And this is where it's very important, because there's been a lot of talk about, well, I represent the citizens. Well, nobody really that's running has really been in the situations that I'm in, where I've actually had to tell agencies, no, you can't do this. This is wrong. This is not legal. You need to do it this way. And sometimes that gets some sparks. Sometimes they run to legislators. Sometimes they run to the governor. Sometimes they run to the executive director of that agency. And so I can say that I've put my job at risk by doing what's right. And but I would rather do that than just be a get along, go along. So there's an element there that when you're giving advice to an agency or you're defending an agency, you should still look at the Constitution. Was it violated? If it was violated, we better be offering some reasonable amount of compensation. If it's not, my philosophy has always been to fight it all the way.
So there was some talk about maybe having an attorney general that's appointed by the governor.
Yes.
Versus being an elected officials. Where do you stand on that?
Nothing new. That's not new. If you go back in the editorials, you'll find an editorial of mine from about 2001, 2002. I ran in 2000 and I lost, and there was a lot of people that wanted me to win, but nonetheless I did lose, and that was something that was asked me then, and I said absolutely not. I might have lost, and I might not agree with the person that's in there, but it would be a disaster. And I say that more than ever now, because this awesome Constitution, the U.S. Constitution that we have, and our Utah Constitution, and all constitutions, are really based upon the idea of checks and balances. It's a hugely important check, having an independent attorney general, treasurer, auditor. Those are things that you absolutely want to be accountable directly to the people, not controlled by the governor.
Very good. Hey, we're going to take a break.
Great.
Okay, and we'll come right back.
Sounds good.
Hi, I'm Corinne Johnson, the president of Utah Parents United. Our passion is protecting your parental rights, and we do that through parents, passion, and caffeine. That's right, we don't take any special interest money or money from big national donors, but we do rely on donations from parents just like you. That's why this year we've created a limited edition t-shirt to represent the fact that you are your child's best safe space. And we want children to know that they can go to their parents on any issue and that you'll be there because you love them best. Our t-shirt this year, I Am My Child's Safe Space, UtahParentsUnited.org, is perfect for Mother's Day or Father's Day. Order one today on our website, UtahParentsUnited.org, and help your child know that you are their safe space.
Welcome back to PoliticIt. We're talking to Frank Mylar, running for Attorney General.
Yes.
It's nice to have you here. So,
Thank you.
So, we talked a little bit about you. Now let's talk about the policy issues that you think are important that voters need to know about.
Absolutely.
Right.
Well, first and foremost, the Attorney General is the attorney for the people, and that's why it's hugely important that it be elected. And there's three issues that are just really prominent on my mind, and they have been for years. It's nothing new here. One of them is the whole border issue. It is impacting Utah in terms of crime, and you see that from the sheriffs. Talk to the local sheriffs, and you'll talk about that. I want to get rid of this sanctuary state nonsense. I want to be able to prevent any city from declaring it, and I'll have to work with the legislature to do that. But there's nobody that's let out on that to say, this is what you need to do. I have a roadmap. As soon as I find out I'm elected and have, in terms of the party, I will actually go to the legislature then and say, this is what we need to do exactly to get rid of that nonsense. The second issue is the federal ownership and control of our land. It's just simply wrong. Why in the world do we have 2/3 of our land not owned by Utahns?
Let's talk about that for federal lands issues. What tools does the Attorney General have that can actually help change that?
Well, first of all, I will say this, that I have actually been personally involved in this issue and fighting it on and off, and actually fighting it. In a week, I'll be filing a brief with the U.S. Supreme Court fighting the feds on control of our lands. So this is nothing new to me. It's not theoretical. I've been doing it. But the other thing is that there's a lot of avenues. There is the lawsuits, yes. There's also different regulations. There's also me going to the legislature, and like Justice Roberts from the U.S. Supreme Court said, states need to start doing their job, because what's happened is when the states do not legislate on certain areas, it's like a vacuum, and the feds just rush into it. And so what I want to do is to push back against the feds.
Yeah, his statement when he made that, he said that states are independent sovereigns. They need to start acting like it.
That's exactly right. And so there is a number of areas that I have in mind that I'm going to go to the legislature and say, this is what we need to do to start rolling this back. We need to start giving sheriffs, they're being kicked off the primary authority of enforcing the laws. We need to stop that right away. We need to do increments. We need to, that's what the liberals have been doing for years. They incremented things away. We need to increment it back. And I honestly will not stop working on this every day I'm in office. There is no way. If we have one success, I'm going to go for the next one. If we have 3 losses, I'm going to keep fighting it, because there's a multitude of ways to do this. There's things my office can do independently. There's things we can do administratively. There's things we can do legislatively. There's things the counties can do. And I want to explore all the options. In the sports world, I want to have a full court press, and I want to keep it up the entire time that I'm in office.
Okay, let's talk about your administrative experience then.
Sure. Well, first of all, I do have a master's in business administration, and one of the things that is significant is they talked about a concept from Peter Drucker, management by wandering around. I'm going to be one of the first attorney generals that actually goes to the attorneys and talks to them, says to see what they need, see what they're doing. I want to see what these opinions are they're giving. I don't think there's good oversight on some of the AG opinions. I read one recently, and I disagreed with it. It actually took a minority view from the U.S. Supreme Court case where there was no majority. It was actually 3 justices that were liberal took this position, and this assistant AG apparently was citing that as if that was precedential. It had 0 precedential value. So I want to get in the office.
We had an early opinion on the sensitive materials bill.
Yes.
That actually quoted the Library Association as being I don't know. We got the Attorney General to issue another opinion on that.
Yeah, and the problem is
caused a lot of confusion.
Well, a lot of times the Attorney General is just standing there as an island, and they're looked at as an expert, and they usually do not have that expertise. I actually do have expertise. I've fought up to the U.S. Supreme Court. I fought in the Utah Supreme Court, 10th Circuit Court of Appeals, and D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. So I've been around fighting these battles, and I'll tell you, I've also been associated with the Alliance Defending Freedom. I really want our viewers to go and listeners to go to adflegal.org. Look at that organization, see what they stand for, and ask yourself, do you want an attorney general who also agrees with these things that ADF does and stands for? Because I'm an honor guard attorney with them, and the reason I am is because I've spent hundreds and hundreds of hours vindicating people's constitutional rights for free. And that's a difference. And that's why I say look at the record. If you're a legislator, you look at your record, right? What do you do if you're an attorney? You should be able to look at their attorney record. That's what matters, not what you did working for someone else, but what you actually did as an attorney, the things you filed in court, the things that you were not even getting paid for, but you did it because it was the right thing to do. So I will bring in people like from the Alliance Defending Freedom, American Center for Law and Justice. These are the organizations that are fighting these battles right now all across the country. And in fact, Mike Ferris, who is the head of the Alliance Defending Freedom, and he actually has endorsed my campaign, he actually wrote some of Texas's briefs. He actually weighed in and helped them on that. I'm going to definitely have those organizations. No one in this state that I'm aware of has really brought that kind of national recognition in to help. A few years ago, actually it was about 10 or 15 years ago, some legislators, conservative ones, said, hey, Frank, we want to have better pro-life laws. Can you help us? And I can. And I said, yes, I would be happy to. But I know a lot about defending pro-life issues because I've done so. So I actually had the experience. But I said, but I want the best. So I actually helped get Steve Aden, who's one of the best pro-life litigators in the country. And he came out free, no one had to pay for it. He helped us instruct, and I think it was on the ultrasound bill and some of those other things that were passed that have successfully stood constitutional scrutiny even before the good court that we have right now. So I will work with different attorneys across the country to usually bring in free assistance. I've worked with the Immigration Law Institute here in Utah. There's a number of those organizations that I've worked with. I'm not leaving that behind when I'm Attorney General.
Right. Very good. So we're about out of time. So why don't you look at the camera and make a pitch to the people in the state of Utah?
Absolutely. I've been married for over 36 years, and I've been practicing law every year of that, over 36 years. I'm a career attorney, a career constitutional law attorney. A lot of people like to say they're constitutional law attorneys. I actually am, and even am doing it now. I'm practicing a law and practicing only constitutional law as we sit here today. That's the kind of person that you need in this office, is not somebody that theoretically says they're going to fight for Utahns, but somebody that's actually done it and knows how to do it and actually knows how to lead out on it. So I ask you to vote for Frank Mylar for Attorney General. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Frank. It's nice to have you here, and good luck with your race.
Thank you.
Thanks
so much.
We'll see you guys next week.